Hello, welcome back to Cusp of Coffee and the ups and downs of dental school. This week, as we are recording this, we are heading towards the end of the academic year. Things are wrapping up. We're heading into exam season. For most of us, I think for both of us, clinics have concluded. And yeah, things are just coming towards an end. On one side, it's coming to the end of third year for me, but on Johan's side, it's actually coming to the end of dental school as a whole. So how is that feeling?
Yeah, I think overall I'd say it's like 2 parts exciting, 10 parts intimidating, because it's like, as much as, time-wise, there's not a lot left. Effort-wise, there's still a lot happening. Yeah. And yeah, I don't know. I always thought that by the end of final year, I thought I would enjoy it more than I have been. I think it's kind of hard to appreciate it when you're kind of in the middle of everything, because you don't really get a chance to take a step back and, just have a look at everything. But I think I'm slowly starting to realize that okay, I might actually finish. I think up until now, I've just kind of been in the mindset of I'll believe it when I see the piece of paper, But yeah, it's obviously been a while since the last episode. A lot of it I've either forgotten or slightly trauma blocked. But I think with your side, how's it been to kind of wrap up your first year of clinics and, now going into exams? Because I remember at the start of the year, we were kind of talking a bit about finding that balance between the academics and the clinics. So I'm kind of curious to hear your thoughts now that you're at the end. And then in the meantime, I'll try to kind of fill the holes in my memory for the blur that has been the past few weeks.
Yeah, I think now that you say that it's actually my first year or wrapping up my first year of clinics, it's kind of weird because I can't really remember a time where there wasn't clinics. It actually hit me last week in the middle of the week. I was like, oh my word, I'm actually it's actually moving towards the end of third year. And this was at the start of the year. If I look back at some of the vlogs I made or just some of the pictures and stuff, and I remember the place I was in where I just didn't know anything. I didn't know where things were in the clinic, how to book a patient, all these things. And it's now it's so second nature to me and to everybody around me or in my class. It doesn't feel like this has been my first year of clinics. It feels like we've been doing it for a while. But yeah, wrapping it up is it's a weird feeling because I kind of think of myself okay, so I'm third year now. With that comes a level of sort of allowances that is made by supervisors because they're oh, you're only third year. It's okay. You'll learn. And now I wonder, how is that going to change next year? Because let's say we're ending off this year and maybe my oral surgery skills are at this certain point, which is very low because I've barely had experience. My restorative skills are at a certain level. My pros skills are at a certain level. Now I start next year and I go into fourth year. Now I have this new badge of being a quote-unquote fourth year dental student. But my knowledge is at the start at least, and my experience practically is exactly the same. And I wonder how that's going to play into that sort of dynamic of being in the clinic as a fourth year compared to the new third years who are going to be in the clinic. Automatically, they're going to assume that I know more, which I will to a certain extent, but also if I mess up, it doesn't mean it's a weird feeling, especially oral surgery. That place scares me. Going in there, I don't have experience still, and now I'm going to be, oh, that's a fourth year. He'll do it, but I don't know how to do it. So it's those weird feelings that are coming in. It's I feel proud to finish this year, but what does next year bring? And on the side of the balancing of academic things, what you told me before of how you kind of get used to writing every single week, it kind of started to happen because I'm starting exams at the time of recording this. I'm starting exams in about a week's time. And leading up to this, we wrote sometimes 2 tests every single week. And at a certain point, you just get numb to it. And it becomes less about finding the balance and more about just chugging through it because you just study when you can, you do what you can, and you kind of find a rhythm somewhere in it. Now is less of a balance because I've wrapped up clinics so I can focus only on the academics. But I feel so burnt out because of these past few weeks of tests that I'm like struggling to study so far ahead of the time. And when I say far ahead, I mean like a week ahead, and that's still like a little. But when you're in this constant cycle of writing tests, you're used to studying like days before the paper, because before that you're studying for other tests. So now when it comes time to study a week before the paper, it's like almost too much time, and I'm like, oh, it feels so far away. So I have more time, but the energy or the dedication to sit down and study, that's lacking right now.
Yeah, it's kind of like that, like just finding that activation energy to do the thing. And when you're busy with a ton of other stuff, it's like, well, you don't really have a choice. Like you got to make it happen.
Yeah, like the way I've kind of framed it now in my mind is like, I've set up an exam timetable or study timetable of what I should do. And I kind of think to myself like, okay, anything you do now is a bonus. Like you don't normally have so much time to study. So whatever you do now is a bonus on top of what you're going to do when it's like a few days before the paper. So that's how I'm kind of telling myself, like, just do what you can now, and hopefully you won't have forgotten it by the time the paper comes around. And then when you resume your normal, like study on the go, like run and gun study vibe, then all of this extra time will somehow, hopefully, boost it a bit.
Yeah, I think for me, because this whole year was like that, where there was just never time for anything. And so even though I'm in exam season now as well, like it's really hard to just get myself to sit and study, especially because I'm sort of in a unique position now where it's like the end of my final year and everything. This is the most relaxed exam season I've ever had, because we have the opportunity to promote some of our exams. And so half of the exams I'm just not writing, and so you have a lot of like dead time between papers. And I noticed something really interesting last week, which is that I didn't have a lot going on. I just had one exam I needed to go write, but it was like a super chill exam, like literally just an hour long. And the whole week I felt very stressed, and it felt like I was forgetting something. But it was just because there was nothing to do. And I just got so used to juggling 12 things at once that the moment you only have one or two things to worry about, your brain is like, it's like your brain is primed to stress about stuff. And now all of a sudden it has nothing to stress about. And it's like actively trying to find something to stress about.
Yeah, you're not used to it. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was like a really interesting experience. It's not something I ever thought about until I experienced it last week. And I was like, damn, like it really messes with your head. Like having so much constant, or like just having so much chronic stress, it really changes the way you kind of look at your days. But most of it can kind of be summarized by a specific 2-week period I had. So there were 2 weeks wherein during those 2 weeks, we just had a ton of stuff due. So our clinical quotas needed to be done. We had end of year portfolios that needed to be done. We needed to hand over patients for next year. And we had assignments that were due. And amongst all of that, we were still writing tests. So it was a lot. And it's like, technically that has been the kind of routine for a while. But with everything coming to an end, it just felt way more intense. And with a lot of the clinics, I didn't have a lot left. It was like, I need to finish one more root canal. I need to do a pulpectomy. I need to do one more root planing. So it's like, it was a just bunch of stuff where it's like, the procedure itself is not that bad. But when you have a ton of different modules and a ton of different patients that aren't, where the work isn't complete, it starts stacking up in your head. And the stress starts getting to you, especially when you're on a tight deadline, because all of a sudden, even though you only need to do one more thing for this patient, when that patient cancels, you don't have any margin for error anymore because you're out of time. And so I found myself, like I would lay in bed and I'd stare at the ceiling and I would think about all the different ways in which the next day could go wrong. And then I'd rock up for the next day and something would go wrong, but not in the way that I expected. And it was only really after the 2 weeks that I realized how a lot of that suffering was completely unnecessary. And especially when you're on a deadline, you don't necessarily think like super rationally about everything. And everything just becomes very scary and very nerve-wracking because it's this big like question mark over everything. And it was a miserable, miserable experience. And the whole time, I just kept telling myself this line from the one Creed movie, which is it's a 2-word line, and it just goes, "Run it." And during that whole 2 weeks, every single day, I would just keep telling myself, just run it. Just put one foot in front of the other. Don't think about the rest of the year. Don't think about the rest of the week. Don't even think about the rest of the day. Literally just, what is the next clinic and what do I need to do? And that was it. And that was the only way I think I made it through those 2 weeks without completely just losing my mind. And what's interesting about final year is, everyone around you is like, all the doctors and stuff, they're like, you're almost at the end. They're like, "Hi, doc," like wink, wink, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so when someone is like, "Oh, you're almost at the end," it's like they mean well, but in your head, you're like, "Oh shit,"
Yeah.
Like it becomes very real and very scary very quickly here at the end.
What do you think, like, besides the fact that, I suppose like now you've wrapped up a lot of quotas and stuff, like there's just like a few days left. What is like the thing that's scaring you the most about completing it now?
I think I'm over the worst. Now it's just exams. And so I think like the only thing I've left to stress about is, are the tests. And, one part of my brain is like, well, I passed all the tests up until now.
Yeah.
And it's not like we did any new work. It's highly unlikely that something's going to go wrong right at the end. But then another part of my brain is like, what if you fail?
What if? Yeah. The what if is always dangerous.
But it's like always there.
Yeah. Putting that aside though, like, your logical brain says that, yeah, you're going to pass. Like, even if it goes to shit, like, most likely you'll still pass. Maybe you won't get like a high mark, but you'll pass. Your emotional brain still stresses about it. But besides that, like, what about like actually getting that degree and like the life after this? Like, not even the life, like the next few months, maybe starting of January, February, those months, like, what of that is like, what are you thinking about when it comes to that? Like, are you getting a sense of freedom? Are you getting a sense of worry because if you don't know what's going to happen? What's like the feelings around those first few months of next year?
To be honest, I always thought that I would be quite scared about ComServe because it's like you compare yourself to maybe the supervisors or another dentist and you're like, hell no, I can't do what they're doing. And like you become very aware of the skill gap. But now that I'm here, I feel a lot of peace about next year because the thing about ComServe, right, as much as, you can pick where you apply and all that stuff, it's kind of still just out of your hands, Like I've seen people stressing about, oh, what if I don't get my first option? Or it's like they have this place in their head and they've already looked at like real estate and, like all kinds of things. And I'm like, I feel like that is just a surefire way to put a lot of unnecessary stress in your life and to set yourself up for disappointment. Because what if you don't get it, which is highly likely that you're not going to get your first choice anyway. And so for me, a lesson that I learned last year, what will be, will be. Like you can do everything in your power, but some things are just not in your hands. And you might think it's going to be a bad thing, but maybe it's the thing you needed.
Yeah.
I've spoken about this before. Obviously, it wasn't very fun repeating last year due to my injury, but it was also the best thing for me at the time. Not all pulls go down easy, And so in my head, I'm kind of like, you know what? I feel like I'll end up where I'm supposed to be. I think the fact that I'm kind of at peace about the whole situation, for me at least, I kind of see that as a sign of a growth. Because when I was younger, like this would have stressed me out so much. But now that I'm here, I'm like, you know what? It's fine. Like I'll go where I need to go and I'll figure it out. And I think that kind of confidence and peace and stillness is something that I've really been valuing a lot more this year. And I think it's something that comes with being put in unsure situations and figuring it out. And it's kind of like, well, you know, I've done all this other stuff. How bad can this new thing be? You know, so it's all, I think it's a perspective that you only really get with enough time and enough kind of hardship. So the other day we took our class photos. So on the 6th floor of our hospital, there's this one long hallway, and it's filled with frame photos of all the final year classes extending all the way back until like the 1960s.
Yeah.
And I've gone through that hallway many times over the years, and I always thought that like, oh, like it would be pretty crazy to see my face up there one day, you know, because it's like lecturers that I know, like you see them as students on those photos, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've just always maintained that the day I see my face on that photo is going to be a pretty crazy day. And the other day we took those photos. It's not every day that you get to celebrate coming to the end of a 6-year degree, coming to the end of the most punishing 6 years of your life. You know, that is a high that you had to work for. And the feeling I had on that day, like I had the biggest smile on my face, you know, when we took that photo, because to get to that moment, that single moment of just like happiness. So, you know, a lot of blood, sweat and tears went into that. So it was like a very special moment. And we talk a lot about the journey, and I'm still like, you know, very much on the side of journey before destination. But that being said, there is a rush about seeing the finish line in front of you, you know. Like it does have its own kick. I don't think all of it is worth it just for that moment, but getting that moment is, it's sweet. It's nice. It's a really special feeling. It's hard to describe. I know it's kind of cliche to say that, like, you know, you'll understand when you get there, but like that really is the feeling, because it's such a long road to get to that point. And obviously, like, there's a whole dental career waiting for me after this, but it's nice to kind of be at a point where it's like, you know what, I didn't do too badly, and just kind of smelling the roses a bit. I think it's this weird kind of bittersweet feeling at the moment where, you know, there is this stress of I still need to write exams and all of that, but it's definitely overshadowed by, oh, I actually made it despite all the doubt. And it's nice to kind of look at the people around me and think like, yeah, like these are young doctors. And then in that same breath, you're like, oh shit, I'm also like a soon to be young doctor, you know. That's a nice feeling. It's very, very, very exciting and very motivating. And it kind of gives me that confidence to also say, and that's another thing, right, about the kind of piece about, you know, I'll end up where I end up, is there's also a kind of confidence with that, to kind of have that level of peace, because like I said, you've kind of proven to yourself, you know what, I'll be okay. And so looking towards next year, it's like, it's one massive question mark. I have no idea where I'm going to be placed. And I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to get up to during the year. But that's also the fun part, you know, is figuring it out. The game changes. I've been playing the dental school game for almost 6 years now, and now I get to start playing a whole new game. One that also pays you at the end of each month. So it's very, nice. Very exciting.
Yeah. I feel like if you look in general in like one's life, you try and look back the last few years, there's nothing to really frame your thinking by, but dental school kind of like provides a framework to kind of think about how much you've changed. And it's like you can see key milestones or key things that happened in your life over the last few years that happened while you were in dental school. You know, a certain way you reacted back then compared to how you react now, the way you used to think about things back then in first year, second year, and the way you think about it now. And like, that's like a framework for you to actually like look back and see how your thinking and how just the way you go about life has changed, and ultimately how you've changed as a person. And that's such like a valuable way of thinking, because you can sort of look back now in retrospect and examine these last few years, and then use all that knowledge to kind of like, okay, now it's like a fresh starting point. Like, when last did you have a fresh starting point? You know, like every year kind of is fresh, but it's just a continuation of the previous year. Like, it's dental school. It's year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 4 again, year 5. Like, it's just the same thing, but in different fonts. And now you're just moving over to a complete new page. And that's just like, it's like it can be like a breath of fresh air also. But like moving it back down now again, like to just the small scheme of things, not the grand scheme. So you told me that you have about, let's say, 2 weeks left.
Yeah.
So tell me what the next 2 weeks are looking like. Like, tell me like specifics. Like, what are you writing? When are you writing it? And what does your last day look like before you're actually just like done with dental school?
Okay, just to preface on my side, I'm currently stuck in a library discussion room with my clinical partner, Ash. And yeah, I think before the episode is over, I'll probably drag Ash to the microphone as well. Because I mean, he's also now at the end. So I think it's useful to kind of get someone else's perspective as well that's in the same boat as I am.
Yeah.
But yeah, at least in terms for me, I have exactly 3 exams left. So I have endo and peds, which we write together. And then also just a quick side tangent on this, because I need to kind of share the pain. So for us, we have a module called odontology, right? And odontology is divided into 4 sub-modules, which is basic restorative, endo, peds, and then dental materials. And to promote odontology, you need to promote all the sub-modules together, right? So if you miss the promotion on just one of them, you have to go and write all the odo exams. And so that's what happened to me. I promoted everything except for dental materials. I missed promotion by 0.1%. 0.1%.
Oh my God.
And because of that, I now have to write 4 exams. So that was fun. But yeah, regardless, it's endo and peds next week. And I'm also writing orofacial surgery, which for me, and I've spoken about this, for me, orofacial surgery has been the gauntlet of dental school. It's the one thing that has scared me the most. And that has plagued me the most over the years and caused the most stress. And it's also, you know, the module that kind of caused me to repeat my 4th year, because it was the one module I couldn't do with a broken wrist. And so, and ever since then, I kind of had this I think for a while I was kind of mentally stuck on orofacial surgery, where I just told myself I couldn't do it. And I think I've grown a lot since then. I've gotten a lot better at it. I've struggled a lot with it, but it remains a very tough subject. And so I think that is the one exam where once that exam is done, then it's the home stretch. Then all that's left is just a prosto exam. But I mean, me and prosto have a pretty good relationship at this point.
Yeah, I think so.
I kind of see I almost kind of see the prosto exam as like a final hurrah. But I think the big test for me is orofacial surgery. Once orofacial surgery is done, I think then it's like, oh shit, this is gonna happen. You know,
in the home stretch,
So that's kind of the next 2 weeks for me. But overall, feeling quite relaxed. Like I said, I think my brain is now starting to accept that, oh, we don't need to be in this high stress state the whole time. Like, we can afford to, you know, buy ice cream and watch a movie and, like, you know, worry about things again tomorrow, which is really nice. And then once that final exam is done, then I'm gonna enter a weird kind of limbo where my ComServe contract is only gonna start in January, wherever I end up. So I'm going to have the later part of November and all of December to just do whatever. Like, I'm going to have 0 responsibilities during that time. I'm not going to be a student anymore, but I'm also not yet working. And so it's this weird little limbo where it's like, what do I do with myself? And I need to, you know, just kind of pack up my apartment that, you know, I've made my home for the past 3 years. Yeah. So I think that's going to be an oddly, like, a bittersweet experience to pack up my apartment, because so much stress and anxiety and good moments as well were like experienced within those four walls. And so I think, yeah, it's going to become very real for me, I think, once I start packing up the apartment and it's like, oh, I really am leaving now, you know? And I think on top of that, during that last week when I'm still kind of in and around the hospital, I really just want to kind of make the rounds throughout the different departments and kind of just go to the people that have really helped me and supported me over the years and just kind of thank them, you know, go to the supervisors that, you know, helped me and supported me. I think even on the times that they didn't realize they were doing it. I think I just really want that closure. Because like it has been a long road and obviously it took a lot of effort from my part, but I would 100% not be here if not for like all the support of a bunch of other people as well. So I really want to just pay my dues before I go. Because I think if I don't do that, it's something that I think I'll regret not doing it. And so while I'm still here, I think that's a box that I definitely want to tick before I leave.
Yeah, a lot of change. Like change in where you live, change in what you do every day, change in like just the way people look at you or address you or think of you. There's just so many different aspects. And I'm actually excited. I'm excited to actually go on that journey with you because, you know, this podcast is going to change. You know, normally every episode we open it up and we're like, I'm Uwais, a third year dental student, and I'm Johan, a final year dental student. It's going to change and it's going to be a dental student and a dentist. Like there, I'm saying it now and now you're freaking out again. Like that, it's like actually going to be a dentist. And, you know, like seeing your day to day is going to be so interesting because going from the last few, like this podcast so far of hearing about what's happening at what's happening at like the hospital and what's happening with quotas and stuff, like from turning into me asking you like, how was your first ever patient like as a dentist? Like how was your first day? How is the living arrangements? What does the hospital look like? All these things. It's going to be so interesting to hear that from my side, and I think from a lot of people who are still studying, and also just a lot of change, which can be scary. I know, like myself personally, I get scared when there's a lot of change, especially a lot of change at one point in time. But yeah, with change comes growth, and I'm excited to go on that journey with you because I'm going to learn a lot. So if you mess up, I'll be making notes so that I don't do it myself. So that's going to be good.
Well, I appreciate the vote of confidence. I think I'll probably come back in Jan. I'll be like, guys, send help. But I think what I'm personally really looking forward to is, the thing is, as a dental student, right, you don't get to stop being a dental student once you're done at the hospital for the day because you have 10 million other things that need doing.
Yes.
But as a dentist, it's like your job starts becoming a part of your life, you know, and you get to have a life again. So I'm curious to see just how that relationship changes between like work and everything else, because you just have a lot more like mental energy that you can spend on other stuff, you know, and
other
money
things,
as well. That also helps too, because it's like, I feel like as a student, you're very dependent on getting this degree, but then afterwards it's like, oh, now I have the degree, you know, and it's kind of like you in a way get to pick how the road looks from there, which I think is super, super, super exciting. Personally, I don't even know like what that's going to be like. But obviously I'll share the experience as we go through it, but it's very exciting for me. As much as there's a lot of unknowns in front of me, it's exciting. I'm at the start of like a new adventure.
Yeah.
But that pursuit of just taking it bit by bit and getting better, and one day you'll be at a point where you're different from, you know, where you started. That fundamentally has stuck with me throughout the years as a dental student, and I feel like I'm now at a point where I get to look back at my first year self and I'm like, that poor idiot has no idea what he just signed up for, but oh, am I happy that I get to now be on the other side of that, because the pain wasn't fun, but it's very fun to kind of flex the muscles that come after that, to now walk into a ward, see a patient and be like, this is what needs doing. And I know how to do that, like that is awesome, going from a point where, I was sitting in first year physics and psychology modules to now having my own patient and being able to act independently and, just kind of having that sense of control over your life again. That is, it's been one hell of a ride, but I am very glad to, just kind of be at the end of it. But I think before we wrap up the episode, let me quickly get Ash back in here. I really want to kind of get some perspective from him as well.
Yes, let's do that.
Okay, you can. Just try to kind of talk into the...
Can you hear me?
Okay, don't do that. Say hi to Uwais.
Hey.
Hello. Nice to finally speak to you.
Same, dude. How are you?
I'm good, and yourself?
Oh, surviving. I'm starving. Johan is taking his time.
Always there.
How has it been? How has it been for the last 5 years dealing with this guy?
5 years?
Yeah, it hasn't maybe that long.
I don't know him for that long. I think I know him for 2 years. Johan is transformed into somebody else. When I was in third year, this man, I was terrified of him. I was like, this man is so focused. I don't want to touch this man. He's just so straightforward. When I got to know him in fourth year, it's a completely different scenario.
So me and Johan were speaking about the big changes that are happening. And he's got a very, whenever I speak to him, we talk about the ups and downs, but it seems like he's got he's everything together. Do you also have everything together, or are you panicking going towards the end?
End of dentistry,
the end of being a dental student, becoming a dentist, moving away, ComServe, just closing this chapter. How are you feeling about that, overall?
It's super exciting. But at the same time, for 23 years of my life, I've just been studying nonstop. So at night, I would be like, what do I do with my life now that I'm not studying? It's a bit of a shock to the system, because what do I do now? And I think the biggest thing for me is I've always wanted to be a doctor, right? And now I'm a doctor. Now it's the next step. What's the next step? And next year for me is, I think, going to be who am I going to be? What's next? And I have this image in my head of what's going to happen, but I'm pretty sure that's not going to happen, because for 5 years, I thought, certain things would happen and even better things happened. So it's flipping scary.
Yeah, I feel what you said now actually just resonates a lot, because you kind of have an idea of what's going to happen or what you would like to happen. And then either it happens or you get something better or something worse. It's just this, again, this up and down. But it's good that you're excited. I feel like most of the people would be excited about the change. No one wants to stay in dental school. Like you said, you've been studying for how many years? No one wants to keep studying. So it's exciting to actually get paid and move on and actually become get that title, for real.
Yeah.
But how are you feeling about your confidence as being a dentist, being the person now with no supervisor, being okay, you need to do all the work yourself. It's on you. How are you feeling about that aspect of things?
I think if you put me in a dental chair now in private practice, I'll probably freak out. But I think I know for a fact initially I would doubt myself a bit, but after 3-4 patients, it'll just be second nature to me. I know there's a lot to learn, but I feel a lot of things fillings, I feel that's a lot of the time I don't use my brain. I just know, okay, etchant, bonding agent, I was doing this. I didn't even know my brain was doing it. It's funny because at the start of the year, I didn't feel very competent at many things, fillings, extractions. I was trash, man. I was so bad. And then towards the end of the year, I'm so confident. I'm not scared to go take out a tooth. It makes me happy because I've learned so much in 6 months, and I've allowed myself to learn that. I feel for certain things, confidence is there. But honestly, I think it'll take a while for my confidence to actually reach that stage where I'm I don't need to use my brain, really, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think also the kind of like the fear or like the doubt comes in because you're thinking about it, whereas your hands are just used to doing the motions. It's almost like you're getting, like your brain kind of gets in the way of you from point A to point B. And the minute that lifts, like you said, like I think once you get in the flow of it, it's okay. Because then you realize like, oh, I've been doing the same thing all the time. Dentistry doesn't change just because I now have a title.
Oh,
like
that's true.
Once I sit down and pick up that handpiece or pick up the forceps, I'm basically back in dental school doing the same thing I did there with no stress. So why should I stress about it now? Because like it's the same thing, my competency isn't changed just because I now have more pressure on me. I'm still going to do the same job I always did.
Yeah.
And by the end of this 5 years, you kind of had so much experience now that, like you said, you're just comfortable with it. So
yeah,
I think that's a good way to look at it.
I feel like I would be a lot more confident because I don't have the stress that a supervisor is looking behind me and I have to make coda and I have to do all these things. I just have to work like it's my work, like that's what matters now.
Yes.
And I don't need to like impress anybody except myself. And unfortunately in dental school, that is a reality where at the back of your mind, it'll always be, oh, am I doing a good job? My supervisor's going to be mad at me. The patient's going to be mad at me. I won't get a good mark. And I feel like when all those things like fall away, you actually start to see who you are as a clinician, who you are as a person. And I low-key can't wait to see what I do, eh?
Yeah. Like inherently with dental school, there's a lot of side quests that you have to do. Like you have to put the patient first, but ultimately whatever you do, it's a mark and it's a quota and it's a reflection on you with the supervisor, which will add to your mark and all these things where afterwards you take all that away. It's just about you and the patient. So yeah, it's interesting to look at it that way. I actually never thought of it that way. Like there's a lot of things in dental school that gets in the way, a lot of red tape that gets in the way between you and actually just performing the treatment on the patient.
Yeah, it's
and
very
in the real world, it's not like that.
Yeah. I think in the real world, it's a lot more like I went and I shadowed at a practice recently. And the main thing that I realized was it's literally 80% your interaction with the patient, the social aspect of it, and like 20% the clinical aspect. It was shocking to me. It was just second nature to the dentist. It's just like, okay, let me spend 15 minutes on just describing everything that I just told you, the treatment and everything. And then when he just did like the treatment, it didn't look like he was using like any like brain power. To him, it was just second nature. It was crazy and how fast he actually was. And he said the hardest part was the patient, like talking to them and everything. And if you know how to talk to people, then you're going to do a great job.
Yeah, definitely a lot of change. That the way you deal with things, the way you interact with people and patients.
I think to end things off, what would you say is one of the main kind of takeaways or like life lessons that you got from the degree? Like obviously we've changed a lot over the years, definitely. And it's been a very stressful experience, been a long road. But what would you say, if you kind of had to look back on it, what's like one of the key things that now going forward you now get to kind of carry with you because you went through this experience?
I think I would say like there were so many times where I was like, this is the end. I'm not going to make it, like I'm not reaching quota. I'm not doing well academically. But every single time I just proved to myself that it's like the end is never like, it's not a full stop always, like life goes on. You find a way. You will always find a way. And you know what the saying is, where there's a will, there's a way. And it really taught me, I would say, resiliency. It taught me an insane amount of resiliency. Like if I gave up at certain stages, I feel like I wouldn't be the person I am today. And I'm like so proud of who I've become over the past 5 years. But I feel like dental school, it really taught me how to like push through like some of life's hardest like aspects. Like it's just been an incredible like journey. I can't believe I made it the 5 years. There were so many times where I was like, I am not gonna make it, but look where I am. I have 2 weeks left. I am it's crazy. Like,
Yeah, that's mad.
Okay, Ash, thank you. Thank you for the heartwarming talk. Thanks for all the support during the past years. I've told Uwais before, but like we kind of have just this tradition, especially on rough days, where, you know, we kind of just say, another day in paradise.
another day in paradise.
As we walk out.
That's something I've started to incorporate myself. That saying, since you told me that, like every time I leave the hospital after a rough day, I kind of say that to myself as well now. And it kind of like does a lot. We spoke about it before, so I won't go into it again, but
Yeah,
it does a lot.
I think like that would just kind of be some of my parting advice to, like, you know, everyone that's still very much in the thick of it, is you, like, as much as it's a long road and it's a long journey, you can only ever do it one day at a time. So just try to make the most of it. And if you can find a reason to smile, even if it's just some stupid saying, then take it, you know.
Yeah. After all of that, now I still have to do 2 more years of dental school. Like, that doesn't seem fair. Like,
Yeah, it sounds rough.
yeah,
Bro. Could never be me, bro.
That's not fair, man. Like, I went on this whole journey with you guys, and now I still have to go back to dental school for 2 more
You have
years.
twice the wisdom. You have twice the wisdom now.
Yeah.
Oh, God. But yeah, that I think is a good place to wrap up this episode.
And yeah, I think kind of on the note of wisdom, so next episode is episode 10, which is a special guest episode. I think we'll probably announce who it is, you know, to everyone who's made it
I think
this
at this
far.
point we can.
So we'll be talking to Prof. Martin Forster, one of Ash and I's favorite people in the whole entire world. One of the best dressed people as well. Yes.
I take inspiration from that man.
Yeah. Awesome human being, head of endodontics at University of Pretoria. And yeah, it's quite an episode. I think people really enjoy it. But at least for this week, thanks for hopping in, Ash. And
For having me.
yeah, thanks for listening. See you guys in the next episode.
See you guys in the next one.